Good morning. Welcome, everyone. My name is Andy Forsyth, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Ridgefield Library. The library partners with the League of Women Voters of Ridgefield on many events throughout the year, and we are thrilled to collaborate today on the Get to Know Your Town event. I'm so happy now to introduce Marilyn Carroll, President of the League, and she'll tell you more about today's program. Take it away, Marilyn.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Andy. And as Andy said, I am Marilyn Carroll, the very proud president of the League of Women Voters of Ridgefield, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us this morning. I'd also like to thank the library for co-sponsoring and hosting this event. The folks at the library continue to do an extraordinary job of supporting, educating, and entertaining the entire community virtually and in person during these very difficult times. We are fortunate indeed to have such a fantastic organization in Ridgefield. This is the League's 12th Get to Know Your Town meeting. We started these meetings 4 years ago to educate and inform Ridgefielders about town government and other community organizations that are so important to us all. And speaking of things that are important to us, the League of Women Voters will celebrate its 102nd birthday on February 14th. As you all know, that is also Valentine's Day, and also when the 19th Amendment was signed, giving women the right to vote. And for us, one of the ways we think you can show how much you care about your friends and loved ones is to make sure they are registered to vote. So in addition to sending them a Valentine's Day card, why not send them the link to Vote 411 so that they can register to vote or check to make sure their registration is up to date. Finally, I'd just like to mention 2 upcoming League events co-sponsored and hosted by the library again, where you can sign up today by going on their website, and they are both virtual. The first one is a Women's History Month presentation on Thursday, March 10th at 7 p.m. with Professor Brittany Yancey. Professor Yancey is an assistant professor of humanities at Goodwin University. Her research focuses on 20th century U.S. social movements, women's activism, and Black women's political and intellectual history. She is a League of Women Voters of Connecticut Women's Suffrage Research Grant Fellow, working with the Connecticut Historical Society on the project The Work Must Be Done, highlighting new research about women of color who worked for women's suffrage in Connecticut. We'll also be holding our annual Meet Your Legislators meeting with 111th District State Representative Amy Berger-Givallo, 138th District State Representative Kenneth Gucker, and 26th District State Senator Will Haskell, we think virtually, on Saturday, April 2nd at 10 a.m. Again, you can sign up on the library's website. These members of the Connecticut State Legislature will discuss what is happening at the state capitol and let us know where they stand on important issues. A question and answer session will follow after that. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce First Selectman Rudy Marconi. Mr. Marconi has been kind enough to provide us with a State of the Town presentation for many years, and sadly, for the second year in a row, and hopefully the last, he'll also be giving us a COVID update. We'll try to take questions at the end of Mr. Marconi's presentation if time allows. If you'd like to ask a question, please type it into the Q&A section found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We ask that you keep your question very brief and only submit one so that everyone who would like to ask a question has a chance to do so. If we don't have too many, you can add another one. And just remember, this program is being recorded. It should be available on the League YouTube channel and with the library within a week. So I'll leave it to you, Mr. Marconi, to let us all know what's going on in the town and how things are going with COVID. It's all yours. And thanks so much again, Rudy.
Thank you, Marilyn, and good morning to everyone here. Thank you for tuning in and participating in today's event. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to communicate to the residents of Ridgefield, as well as the Ridgefield Library, and hosting this event and doing the incredible job it does do for our community. The first thing I would like to do today, as I got approval from Marilyn, would be to do a COVID update. And I know last year I took advantage of Rick Lawrence, who is, excuse me one second, Rick Lawrence, who is our data scientist, lives in Ridgefield. And on a volunteer basis has been providing us statistical data every day. And I'll go through this chart here, at the end of which time, if anyone has any questions, as Marilyn stated, please put it into the Q&A and they'll be passed along to me so I can try and answer them for you. But Rick has been very gracious in his support. He's a member of our Covet task force, the task force being made up of myself, Susie De Silva, the superintendent, both Chief Myers of Fire, Chief Kreitz of Police, Ed Briggs, our Health Director, Dick Aarons, Emergency Management, Jerry Lewis, PIO, and Tony Phillips, and the list goes on. About 12 people in all. And the first slide I would like to show you, hopefully you can all see this, is a Ridgefield summary. And that first block up to the left, you can see Ridgefield, the number of new cases reported. This comes out on Monday, is reported as of Monday. So this is our last night's report. We had 9 cases, 24.6 is our new case rate per 100,000, and we have about a 5% positivity. I want you to understand that these numbers are dropping incredibly fast. There'll be some future charts that I'll show you here just in a few minutes, but I wanted to explain and talk about the new case rate per 100,000, that 24.6. Richfield is 25,000 people, so you just take that number, divide it by 4, and approximately number is the 6 cases are what Ridgefield has been experiencing. And again, this is a 7-day average, the case rate. The state of Connecticut, if you go to their website, it's a 2-week average or 14-day, which shows a much higher number because obviously when you have cases that are dropping so quickly, 2 weeks is going to give you a higher average than the 7 days. So we're very happy with this report. If you recall, a year and a half ago or so, the state was looking at communities. Once you achieve 10 cases per 100,000, you went into the yellow. And then above 15 cases per 100,000, you would go into the red, meaning we were canceling athletic events, any kind of a group gatherings were canceled. We were very, very, very strict. Dr. Scott Gottlieb from Westport, who is a member of the Pfizer board and also an authority in this area, has advised and stated on the Face the Nation, I think it was on Sunday morning, that we should begin thinking about 20 cases per 100,000. I feel we're going to get well below that, but COVID is never going to go away. It's going to be with us for a while, and we need to learn how to live with it. So you will be hearing more about what the new red may be in the state of Connecticut. It may be the 15, it could be 20, but we're feeling very good about the direction of how things are going. Here's another chart that displays, oops, too far. Right here, you can see the top one is the new case rate. Right in the center of the chart on January 9th, where my cursor is right here, we peaked out at about 150 cases per 100,000, an incredibly high number. And you can see over the last month or two to February 6th, where we're at our current 24. The black line is Ridgefield, the blue line is Fairfield County, and the red line being Connecticut. This is the same, depicting the test positivity that we've seen coming down as of February 6th. All of this definitely good news. This chart here that Rick puts together is a new case rate, and it can show you all the way to the left going back to November of 22, where we were relative to our case rates. And you can see the winter peak, the spring, and then we had that sharp increase back in September of 21 with the Delta variant, and then Omicron hit. And you can see how rapidly the number of infections increased. And then conversely, how rapidly the cases are decreasing down to your very far right. So we're getting back into a very low level, low rate case rate per 100,000. And this is our hospitalization. This is a key factor for us that we look at often right now. It's how many people are actually being hospitalized. And once again, with the Omicron, you can see the sharp increase and then the sharp decrease over here on your right. We're hoping for this trend to continue. This chart I use in our regional meetings as chair of the Western Connecticut Council of Governments, 18 communities. And I'll explain it to you because it can look confusing the first time you look at it. The small dot, let's use Bridgeport, which is all the way to the left. The dot is where they were 7 days ago. And the name with a circle is where they are as of the date of this report. And you can see all of the communities in Fairfield County. The red dotted line in the center is the fully vaccinated rate in Fairfield County, which is about 80% of the people are fully vaccinated. And the blue line is the new case rate average in Fairfield County, which is 30.9. And as you can see, where you would like to be is in that lower right quadrant, where you have a good vaccination rate as well as a low case rate. And then you can see exactly where Stanford is in comparison to everyone else. But this gives us a sense of relativity where we are in the county. This gives you an idea where Connecticut is as a whole. The first here percent of the 5+ population who have at least initiated the vaccination. Connecticut is #1 out of the entire country at 95%. And I have another chart coming up that'll illustrate that. But you can follow here on this cumulative total here where Connecticut ranks within the country. And we're doing very well. We're right at the top, and we have been there consistently throughout this pandemic. And then down here, you can get some information. And by the way, all of this information is on our website, the town's website, at www.ridgefieldct, don't forget the CT, ridgefieldct.org. And there's a bright red bar. You click on that, and you'll have access to all of this information. This is the bar chart that I was referring to just a few minutes ago relative to the breakdown of the percentages of people and their vaccination rates. At the bottom, you can see there's a bar for age 5+, 5 to 11, 12 to 17, etc. So those of us over the 65 age category have done a great job in the vaccinations. And the black is the booster, and we're heading to 78% of us have gotten our booster shots. An excellent report. What's interesting, you'll see a little bit of a dip here for the younger ages, but you'll notice that the 18 to 24 is showing a 100% vaccinated rate with a 50% booster. The reason for this, and it was an anomaly at first, we couldn't figure it out, then realized that every college and university this fall required every student returning to school to be vaccinated. If you weren't vaccinated, you were not allowed to return to school. And that's why we saw this 100% vaccination rate. And then overall, the 5+, this part all the way to the left right here, gives you where we are collectively. 47% have received the booster, 84 have been completely vaccinated, and 93.3% have at least initiated the vaccination rate. This chart is to show you what happened with Delta, other variances, and then the Omicron, how it quickly took over as the #1 virus that we were all experiencing. And then finally, just kind of an overview of the populations and the unvaccinated. Here in the browns, the unvaccinated versus the vaccinated. And the takeaway on this is that relative to fully vaccinated people, unvaccinated people are 3 times more likely to get COVID. And again, this isn't editorial. This is strictly statistics, data science, putting the numbers together. This is what the numbers are telling us. This is no one's opinion. It's scientists working these formulas. So that's where we're at. Bottom line, at the end of the day, we're in pretty good shape. Numbers are coming down. The governor yesterday announced that the masks would be required in schools for the rest of this month. Then it would go to local district decision. Here in town, generally speaking, we ask people to continue to wear your masks. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But if you feel that it's necessary, if you have any kind of a compromised immune system, we ask people to please keep that mask on. We do not want you getting ill. An interesting sidebar on this, Dr. Maher Madhoun, who lives in Richfield and is on our task force, is also infectious disease at Stanford Hospital. In the middle of this whole pandemic, I had asked the question in a task force meeting, Doctor, we know what the pandemic is delivering. How's it compared to other viruses in the hospital? And he went back and did about a 4-year look back and stated that in a following meeting that when he went back and looked, they averaged, Stanford Hospital averaged, let's say 250 to 300 admittances in their emergency department every year due to influenza. 250 to 300 influenza cases admitted into the ED every year. With this virus, because we began wearing the masks, washing our hands, being careful about congregating in large groups, the number of influenza cases that they experienced last year in Stanford Hospital was a total of 2, which was absolutely amazing. The impact of what our behaviors was able to do was to almost wipe out influenza by wearing your mask, washing your hands, and keeping your distance. And it gives pause for thought about how do we behave going forward? Are we going to see more people wearing masks? I think we are, because it's proven that it's absolutely one way to help control all these viruses. So at this point, I will go back and stop the share and open it up to any questions, Marilyn or Andy, that people may be having.
Rudy, we don't see anything in the Q&A right now. We just want to remind folks that they can put their question in the Q&A and we will address it if we can.
Great, excellent. So if you do have any questions, don't be shy, put them into the Q&A, and if I don't get a chance to answer them in this presentation, we'll certainly follow up with an answer to you via email. That concludes the COVID update. Again, we're doing very well. The numbers are dropping. Continue to wear your mask. It's not a mandate, it's an option, but we strongly advise you to do so. And enjoy life. Get out there, and hopefully we'll be back to normal in the next 60 to 90 days. Thank you on that. So now I'll move over to the state of the town. I want to thank the league again for giving me this opportunity. It's been a very interesting last 2 years, I can say that. Having started off with COVID myself and being out for almost 45 days from work, certainly was an interesting experience, and one that I don't want to experience again, nor do I wish anyone else to go through what I went through. However,
Rudy, hold on. We do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
We have a question about do we do any wastewater analysis for COVID?
No, we don't. Bridgeport has been a leader in that, and Connecticut has been a leader. It's been interesting that the wastewater is giving some averages they can look at, but Richfield has not, and I will certainly talk to the Director of Health about that. Our numbers are looking pretty good. I don't know if we want to begin hiring a company to start sampling the wastewater. We just do not have the personnel available to do that right now relative to the pandemic and COVID specifically. When will our be?
We have another question about when will the Ridgefield Public Schools make a decision about masks following the governor's announcement?
I did email back and forth with the superintendent today. We'll be pulling our task force together Friday morning. And I would assume that Superintendent De Silva will make a decision that following week or that Friday afternoon. I don't know. But I know what the governor's decision has been, and that's, I'm sure, what precipitated this question.
Okay, and the last one is, what is the town going to do differently with regards to testing in the future? I'm not sure what that means, but maybe you.
Well, I think differently in terms of how do we set up our testing. We worked with the vaccinations. We worked in agreement with the Visiting Nurse Association, and we're able to commence vaccinations at the Yanity Gym, if you all remember that. And that was quite successful. We were able to take care of quite a few people. As far as testing, we did open up docks at the Yanity Gym for a period of time, closed when the numbers went down, and reopened them more recently. Some complaints about the availability of the test results, but overall, we did okay. I think in the future, we'll be more, probably react more quickly. You know, having never done this before, it took us a little bit of time to get organized and get everything together, and of course to go out and find someone who was willing to come to Richfield to do the testing. And then obviously we purchased the test kits. The at-home test kits became more popular. There was huge demand, and we were able to go out and purchase, I believe, about 17,250 out of Florida. I was able to got approval from the Board of Finance, or the chairman of the Board of Finance, as well as the Board of Selectmen, to make the expenditure. The money, but it was $348,000. That money came from the ARPA funds that were allocated to the town of Richfield. And in fact, this past week, we had a town meeting to approve those expenditures, the use of the money from the ARPA funds. So probably try and move more quickly, but we have a task force available now. We have the experience under our belt. We will call that task force back to the table immediately and begin looking for tests and someone to come into town to test, as well as a distribution of a vaccine. And God forbid we have to wait for another vaccine, because that's what delayed a lot of this. The vaccine is working. It's working well. We ask all people to please get vaccinated. I hope
we have one more question. We have one more COVID question, which is, where are free masks available to residents?
Actually, Peggy and I, my wife and I, were in Rite Aid on Sunday, and they had a whole barrel full of free N95 masks. And there was a limit of 3 per customer. So go into Rite Aid, they're right there. We were able to get 6 of them. If you need masks, let me know. We have access to the state of Connecticut for N95. N95 are not the most comfortable. They have 2 rubber bands, elastic bands go around your head, and they do fit very tight, but they are the best mask available. Second to the N95 is the KN95, which has more of a beak effect to it. And that one is very good as well. However, when we fit tested the KN95, we found we were able to get about a 40% success rate in terms of the escape of any air or the incoming of air around that area. So overall,
I think,
something's coming up on my screen here.
I think that's the last one as far as COVID is concerned. We do have one that asks about your presentation going forward. Later on in your presentation, will you be talking about town boards and positions which need to be filled?
Excuse me, Marilyn, that was about town boards and vacancies to
be filled? Later on in your presentation, we'll be talking about town boards and positions which need to be filled.
I had not planned on it, but I will tell everyone right now, if you're interested in participating, giving back to the town and joining a board, commission, or committee, don't hesitate to contact my office at Selectman, SELECTMAN @ridgefieldct.org, or feel free to call 203-431-2774. We definitely have some vacancies, not a lot. Richfield, I've got to tell you, if it wasn't for the volunteers in this community, we wouldn't have the community we have today. It's a wonderful community, and thank you to everybody that volunteers, because you're the ones that make it great, and it's appreciated. So anyone interested in volunteering, giving back, please call the office. We'll find a place for you.
Okay, I think that's it, Rudy, and you can move on, and I'm sure there'll be more questions after your state of the town.
All right, well, just an overview of what I normally do, and to be consistent this year, is I'll talk a little bit about the fiscal year that just ended in June. That was the 21 fiscal year. We're currently in the 2022 fiscal year. However, we're budgeting now for the 23 fiscal year. So those will be the three tranches that I will be addressing the town of Ridgefield status today. To start with the year ending 2021, as I said earlier, with COVID, it was a bizarre year. Originally, back in 20, we were looking at the possibility to have to go out and actually borrow money to run the town in the event that taxes were not paid, that people were out of work. We were looking at worst case scenario. What might we do if we run into that very real possibility back then? The exact opposite happened. Our tax rate, our collections was better than ever, which was incredible. We grew our unassigned fund balance up to 15.1 million, which is, again, great. The revenues were strong. Conveyance, on a budget of about not quite 600,000, we collected almost a little over $1 million. So we doubled that. The tax collection was excellent. And the supplementals, we found that the used cars are going up in value. So that added a lot as well. Our debt service decreased. Our pension obligations decreased. And we did a refunding, saving the taxpayers. Now, refunding is we borrowed money maybe 9 years ago. And with the interest rates dropping, we looked at what borrowings were there that we could potentially refund. And we did, and we will be saving about 800,000 over the next 20 years. You could take it in one lump sum, but that would cause a sharp decrease in the revenue or the obligation and in our debt service. And what we always do in cooperation with the Board of Finance and Molly McGinn, our treasurer, is we look for a smoothing effect. So we spread that savings out over 20 years to have better control and a better forecast that we can do in the upcoming years. 2021 was a great year. We did spend a little over about $560,000 in a rent subsidy program. People, if they were in trouble, out of work, and we all know the hospitality services were hurt severely during the shutdown. We handed out about $570,000. We had 2 people that donated $350,000. One individual wrote a check for $250,000 for this project. Another family wrote a check for $100,000 for this project. And then we took about $120,000, $130,000 from our emergency account in social services, which is made up of all donations. So that $500,000 that was given out to help people with their rents was not taxpayer funds in the true sense that we collected it as taxes. It was money that was donated to the community for that purpose. And if you were to read some of the comments that we received, it was a good program and helped a lot of people. So we're very, very happy about that. We were able to do that. So as we came into the current year, 2022, things continue to move forward. Our conveyance taxes are good. Revenues are up. Expenses are running a little hot in 3 areas. We're running high in our tree warden account. As you know, we have an ash tree problem in town. And although you can't tell much now because there's no foliage, there's absolutely not a leaf on a tree. When the springtime comes and you see the dead trees, again, the phones begin ringing. And we're spending in the $350,000 to $400,000 a year battle with the trees to address all of the rotted trees, dead trees in our community. So this year is no different. That demand continues. As of 6 months into this year's budget, which is through January 31st, we're almost 100% expended, and we increased it for this year. So that's running hot, but we know why, because of the trees. Our fire overtime is up, and our fire overtime is interesting. We went to 8 men so that we could have 4 pieces of apparatus that would respond to any of your needs. We have a fire truck in Ridgebury, a fire truck downtown, and we have 2 ambulances here in town that respond. And over the years, the number of calls for EMS services, ambulance services, has been increasing steadily and more steadily. By going to 8 men, we can put 2 men on each vehicle, and they are assigned to that vehicle for the entire day. And as you know, we all have paramedics in town that are the best service that a municipality can provide, and we do that. But the overtime due to retirements, so whenever your 8-man goes down, you have to pay overtime to cover it. We've had a couple of short-term disabilities. We have workers' comp cases. So our overtime is running very heavy. We're back to full staff now. We've replaced all of the retirements. We had 4 of them, and those people started last month. So hopefully the second half of this year, we'll see that retirement go down to a more realistic level. But you can't predict retirements. You can't ask people to sign a paper as to when they're going to retire. We don't know when there's going to be a workers' comp case or a short-term disability case. So it's a difficult thing to forecast. But the effort is to get it under control, which we are doing. And then the third area where we're running higher than anticipated is in information technology. And this is being driven a lot by cybersecurity, additional servers, that whole area. I am not an IT person, so don't hold me to some of the terminology I may use. It may be wrong, but generally speaking, there's ransomware out there, which there are people who intentionally try to steal your information, lock it up, and make you pay a ransom to get it back, believe it or not. And that has happened in the Wolcott School District, the Shelton Police Department. It happened in the Southeastern Council of Governments, and you have no alternative. So here we have made every effort to back up our systems and to duplicate our efforts there so that if someone were to hijack, we have another avenue to open up and continue our work, not pay the ransom, as well as all the other technology needs. And it's a constant moving target. It seems as if you buy something, 5 years go by and you need an upgrade. There's something better out there, something more secure. So we're running heavy there. We have 1 person in our IDT department and a half-time, part-time person. The thought is, do we have to go to a second full-time person? That is being debated right now for the 2023 budget year. But overall, this year, we're running about a $600,000 surplus. We're good in revenue. We're running tight in our expenses. The net is about $600,000 to the positive. So we are in great shape this year, and hopefully the next 5 months will bear that out. As far as the budget, I mentioned we're in the middle of our budgetary season, and that's going on now. The Board of Selectmen just finished the first week of February meeting with our major departments: police, fire, highway, parks and rec, IT, as I discussed, as well as the facilities engineering department that take care of all of our buildings. Those are the 5 or 6 major areas that we want to get to work on right away. Our police department came in great shape. The only increase that we're really seeing, in addition to some increases that are contractual for wages, and those are all 2.5% or less, all of our contracts. But the PD has the cost of the new body cam, dash cams. Those are cameras that are on every police car dashboard, as well as cameras that are on our police officers themselves. We have a cost, an operating cost of about $60,000 a year. This is the first year that commenced, so we're seeing that increase. But if we took that out, they would be, I think, under 2% increase. So no issues there with the fire department. We're running hot and overtime. We expect to get that under control. We had quite a bit of turnover in the fire department. A lot of people, were retiring, but also some young people who joined the department felt there were greener pastures and left. The fire commission, which is also the board of selectmen, worked and had a lot of discussions during our fire commission meetings about the department and what do we need to do? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Is there something in the department and the management that we could change? So we continue to improve, to look for ways to improve and to make it a better environment. People like working in Ridgefield, especially paramedics, and they come to Ridgefield because they get to experience both the medical service side as well as the fire side. We hire and have on staff at any point 12 to 14 paramedics who are above an EMT. Most departments will provide EMT service, that's emergency medical technicians. Our paramedics are all trained, specially trained, and we have the highest allowed use of drugs of any department, and I believe in the Danbury area, in terms of what we can administer. When that ambulance shows up at your house, it is like the emergency room coming to your house. That initial review with our paramedics, setting you up with the IVs, with all the leads to monitor you, is sending information to the hospital so the hospital can be as prepared as they possibly can for your arrival. I feel that our level of service is next to none. Is it expensive? Yes, it is. It's quite expensive, but we all want the best of care. When you call for that ambulance, you want to know that the best people that are available are on that ambulance and coming to help you. And we do that. Highway, snow. This year we're running through the last storm. We've expended about $340,000. That's overtime, salt, everything that went into the storm. We should be okay. Our salt pile, we should have enough salt there now. The rest is the last of the year, but who knows? Only Mother Nature is going to dictate that. But Dave Buccetti is our public work director and has done an excellent job. Potholes are everywhere. We've had a rough winter with the cold temperatures, cold and then thawing and raining and then freezing. That is a perfect formula for potholes, and boy, are we seeing them. So again, apologies out there if you've hit one. We're doing our best to keep up. Even the state highway, we've seen some tremendous potholes out there. Call us, let us know, and we'll get there as soon as possible to fill that pothole. Parks and Recreation, they had a tough time during COVID, obviously because of the many people who attend there. It was difficult, and it's difficult to work out with a mask on. There's no question about it. And I know a lot of people felt to have to wear a mask in a pool, or some people were, some people weren't. We had those questions, those issues, those complaints coming all the time. Right now, the good news is Parks and Rec is coming back. Signups are good. The camp is the biggest revenue generator, and usually people sign up in March. This year, we're already seeing people signing up. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that the revenues will come back and Parks and Rec will get back to a full house as they were. Something that came up this year is ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act. And what that act did is distribute billions of dollars out to all the municipalities throughout our country. Richfield received 7.4 million. Our first payment came in approximately in January, I think, maybe earlier, but the second one isn't due until May. The two separate payments, approximately $3.7 million each, or 7.4 million in total. That money, some of it has been spent. What we have agreed to do, I suggested that we follow a process similar to what we do in our capital approval process. That is, Board of Education or Board of Selectmen, the request, Board of Finance approves, comes back to the Board of Selectmen. We have a town meeting. People can come to the town meeting and make those approvals. Earlier, I mentioned last week, we approved the $348,000 for all the test kits. Hopefully everyone was able to benefit from that. That money came out of ARPA. To this date, out of the 7.4 million that we will have allocated, we have spent 1.55 million, which was used by the Board of Finance to bring down the mill rate, actually to spend on specific items, because you're not allowed to use it to reduce taxes. You can use it to buy items, and they were very specific in their deliberations, itemizing those items that were purchased, and the total use was 1.55 million. We then allocated 2.9 million to be used for the new sewer line that will allow us to decommission or shut down the Route 7 sewer plant and pump everything up into the sewer plant on South Street. That was approved again, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, town meeting. And then finally, once again, I'm being repetitious, but the 348,000 for the test kits. Bottom line, at this point in time, we have approximately $3 million that are left and available for spending. Some of those monies will perhaps be used if we get the approvals for the 2023 budget. We're also looking at the possibility of some of those fundings going to some of the 501s in our town that make our town the great town it is, whether it's the library or Keeler Tavern or the Aldrich Museum, the Playhouse, ACT, the Theater Barn, the Guild of Artists, and the list goes on and on, Throne Stone, many, many, many different organizations that suffered a severe loss in revenues during COVID. The thought is we need to give them some assistance as well, similarly to what we did and how we helped the renters who couldn't make their rental payments. That is something that will be handled as well on a separate basis as we move forward. But as we move into the budgeting for 2023, the town is currently at a 2.66% increase. The Board of Education is at a 4.98% increase. So if we look at those numbers and no use of fund balance, we have a mill rate, a tax increase of about 2.47%. That's where we're at today. And again, the Board of Education still has work to do. We still have work to do. The Board of Finance may use some of the fund balance, because if you recall earlier, our fund balance increased to over 15 million. We have a policy, the Board of Finance has a policy of maintaining an 8 to 9% of the budget for our fund balance. That would allow, according to the finance director, about 1.5 million, a million, and maybe two. That's up to David Ulmer and his group, the Board of Finance. But that would be a help in bringing the 2.47 tax rate down. We had some interesting things. When you look at a 2.6 and a 4.9, almost 5%, you're saying, well, how can the mill tax rate only be 2.5%? Our grand list increased to 3% this year. And for some of you who may remember, back in 2007, myself and our Al Garzi negotiated with Beringer Engelheim a tax abatement program. This year is the final year that that tax abatement ended. And that was for their expansion that they did. It was a $500 million expansion. And we abated taxes on one of the new projects. We're getting this year, the 23 fiscal year, we're seeing an additional $1 million come into the town, which will be every year going forward. That helps bring down the 2.47%. We're seeing a 15% reduction in our debt service. The bundle is being paid off. If you recall, back in 2000 and 2001, we did a lot of building in our schools, and that debt is being paid off this next year, and it continues to fall. So our debt service is going roughly from 9.7 to 8.2 million, or a 15.5% drop. That helps bringing it down to a 2.47%. And then the final area is the pensions. Last year, the market did extremely well. And as of July 1, 2021, we had a return of roughly 27% in the pension. Extremely well. Again, the Pension Commission uses that, spreads it out, and that's helping save us about $400,000 a year as well. So those are the three major categories and changes, all positive. We're very lucky, all positive things happening that are allowed to bring it down to a 2.47%. What do we do from here to get it down even lower? It could be a reduction, further reduction in the town operations. It could be a further reduction in the Board of Education expenditures, and it could be the use of fund balance. Those three areas are really what are going to finally dictate where we end up with the budget that we bring to you. And we're certainly hoping that this year we have a full referendum at Unity, like we did last year, COVID-free at least, and with a town meeting as well at the Playhouse. Financially, that's where we're at. We've done very, very well these last 2 years. And even though we were under the COVID umbrella and things were looking bad and depressing, the financial side, the town's operations really did very well. Like I said, Caban's golf course, I mean, it was about $200,000 more. People, when they were able to play golf, just couldn't wait to get out there and play golf. The next area I just wanted to cover, and it's 11:17. Marilyn, how much time have you allocated? Am I supposed to be wrapped up now?
Oh, as long as you need to, Rudy.
Okay. I don't want to put people to sleep. But our capital, which are our major expenditures, I asked Jake Mueller for a list of what we have completed through the 21 and 22 fiscal years. We redid the cold storage building at Highway. That's on Old Quarry Road. When you're going down, it's the steel building on the left. We did new siding and new roof. We moved the Board of Education from their old area to where the V&A is, or was. Our V&A was located up at the Venus building. We remodeled all that. That project came in on budget at $1.3 million. It was tough out of the blocks, but we got it all figured out. And they are there up and running, and they love the area. Parks and Rec added a new ADA ramp. I don't know if you've seen that. We also did a little expansion of parking. We added 22 spaces down at Parks and Rec. We completed the Governor Street expansion, gave us another 39 spaces in downtown. That's next to the RV&A on Governor Street, in between the RV&A and the Boys and Girls Club. Tiger Hollow and the Scotchridge Middle School track and field, we redid 2 turf fields, including a new driveway and a whole new track around Tiger Hollow. Solar installations are becoming a very big item. We completed installations at RHS, Richfield High School, of a 250 kilowatt system, as well as the Ridgeberry Elementary School of a 100 kilowatt system. To give you an idea of what these solar installations are doing and what we hope to be able to save. For 3 months this year, the Scotland school was completely off the grid, meaning that they did not have to use or purchase any outside power, which is a huge savings. For each elementary school we're completing, this is not going to sound like a lot of money, but it's about $20,000 per school. We have 6 elementary schools. That's $120,000 a year. And RHS in the middle schools are Scotts Ridge. We just finished. I don't have a complete year to figure out what the savings is there, but we continue to move forward with those projects, and it's resulting in a savings. What we're not seeing is the savings being set aside to be used for future projects. In other words, if we do a school and it reduces the electrical cost by $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, they see that reduction in their budget, but the money isn't put back to the taxpayers at all. So now the discussion is, and I've had a couple of meetings on this, can we set up a special account where just the first year that drop in savings goes into a special revenue account that we can set that money aside and use to help improve, increase the amount of alternative power that we can create using the solar panels that we have. So we're doing well. By the way, you're going to see hopefully an installation at the RHS, Richfield High School student parking lot. That's the parking lot in between Richfield High School and Scotts Ridge Middle School. That will be a canopy system in the parking lot. There'll be roofs over each parking place. On that roof, there will be a solar panel. That system alone, we're anticipating to generate another 500 kilowatts of power, which will begin to seriously eat away at the cost of operating the high school. All positive news. Public safety building, something I haven't talked about that's on our future list is a new police department and fire department. When we did the school bundle project back in 2000, I made the statement that we weren't going to look at any major project, and we've had some minor ones, but I mean major in terms of something comparable to a school, until we were able to bring down our debt service. And as I said earlier, our debt service is coming down and continues to come down. Now we have to look at our police department and our fire department. Our fire department building's well over 100 years old. Our town is now 25,000 plus. The police department is right out of the 70s. It was the old state police, and we've outgrown it. It is probably in the poorest condition of any building we have in terms of being utilized as a police department. And I invite anyone on this call, spread the word around town, set up an appointment to have a tour of the police department or the fire department, and you'll see why we need to upgrade these facilities. We have completed a survey of our town of various locations, and we looked at everything. We looked at everything from buying an area, a building in the center of town geographically down in Copp's Hill. We looked at a conversion of ball fields. We looked at the closing of VP and converting it to a police station. We've looked at everything. And we did that so that we could come to you during the public hearings, during the town meetings, which are yet to take place, to give you the confidence that the people on the police commission, the people on the board of selectmen have done our due diligence. And the location we've come up with is the Schlumberger property. We bought it. We own it. Why are we looking at other facilities? To be sure that there's nothing out there that we're missing. So that process continues, the PD, FD. It's going to be very expensive. It'll be in that 50 million plus or minus area. That's a tremendous amount of money, but it will take care of the needs of the fire department, the needs of the police department for the next 30 to 50 years. And we need it now. Our ambulance, our fire trucks coming out of Katuna Street that I look over right now, When there's traffic, it takes them a while to get through that traffic, and response time is critical. And as I alluded to earlier, when you're waiting for an ambulance, 2 seconds seems like 2 hours because of your loved one being there and needing help. We need to improve our ability to respond more quickly without traffic. The Schlumberger location is perfect, and we're looking forward to that. And then finally, the Venus building, we have to look at all the HVAC equipment there for the Playhouse. That's our building. We own it. It's part of the infrastructure of the building, and we have to assume the responsibility for upgrading all of that. That's what we were able to get done in 21 and 22. The projects we're proposing for next year is, again, the solar canopy that I was referring to earlier. That'll be no cost to the taxpayers, by the way. That's funded through a special fund with the state. We're looking at redoing all of our lighting in several buildings, town hall, the annex, doing our parking lots. We have a culvert we have to install by Ridgebury Elementary School on a corner at Bennett's Farm Road. We're doing window replacement at Yanity Gym in the town hall annex. We're doing a drainage design study to increase our capacities, and I could be quite lengthy in discussing this. We have 3 major drainage basins in town. 2 of them come together at one point and funnel through a couple of pipes that, unfortunately, due to the building and the creation of impervious area, we need to slow up the flow somehow, and that's what we're going to be studying. We're doing sidewalk extensions and repairs, and plus a new roof and solar array at the highway garage. That's a list of some of the capital projects. Those are the areas that we're looking at to give you an idea of how we spend our time. And then in the non-capital area, of course, we're going to be doing Main Street. Don't let me forget, Main Street starts in about another 45 days. The first part of that project will be the realignment of the entrance to CVS at Prospect Street, so we can line those two intersections with Main Street so they're together, and we can drop one phase out of the cycle of the lights and hopefully move traffic a little smoother through that area. And then Branchville, I mentioned that every year. That'll be starting hopefully this year with the sidewalk program. Non-related to capital, we have a couple of issues we're going to have to talk about as a community. One is cannabis, marijuana. As you know, the state legalized recreational use. The planning and zoning in Richfield voted for a 1-year moratorium through next September. And what I'm hoping to be able to do is between now and May, have several public hearings so that you can all come and listen to the pros and cons. And then in May, add it as a question to our budget process so that when you go to vote, we get an idea. It'll be your choice. You tell us, do we want cannabis sold in Richfield, a dispensary in Richfield, or not? It'll be a simple question, but it's a complex issue because science is finding that there's some benefits associated with it. And I'm not going to opine on my personal opinion. I'll just put it out there to be aware we're going to be talking about it. And then the second area is something that was really highlighted unfortunately, during COVID, and that's mental health. Many people, many adults, many children, we're seeing sharp increases in mental health issues. And it's alarming now, and it's at emergency level. Counselors, people in the business of helping people who are suffering mental health issues, their itinerary is full, their book is full, there are no appointments, and people need help. So there's going to be a lot of debate, a lot of discussion about the mental health of our community. What can we do and how do we do it? Stay tuned for that. In fact, Friday night, there's a forum at the Boys and Girls Club. Jerry Blair, the Richfield Rotary, has organized this. We have Mike Flynn, the executive director, at this wonderful place we have called the Richfield Boys and Girls Club, to begin that discussion as a community about community health, what we're seeing and what can we do about it. And then a couple of events. I'll wrap up with this. This is the final. We have a Battle of Richfield, the 245th reenactment of the Battle of Richfield. It'll start Friday night, April 29th. Saturday will be the reenactment. Saturday between 11 and 2 in that window. Main Street will be closed down. Please make a note of that, because the Connecticut 5th Regiment is helping organize the soldiers. We'll have a minimum of 100 reenactors on both sides, the British and the American, the colonials, that will stage the fight similar to what we did 6 years ago, 5 years ago. There'll be barricade at the original monument by the elms in that area where the monument is. There'll be a second one in the middle of town, and then another one up by the Lounsbury House, where you will see how the soldiers fought back then. And it'll be quite a walk down the history of Ridgefield Main Street, and very inviting. Then on Sunday morning, May 1, around 11 o'clock, we will have a procession for all of those who all of you who may remember the discovery of the skeletal remains on Main Street. We will be doing a processional from the monument location. By then, we hope to have received the returns of the remains of the soldiers. Jowdy Kane Funeral Home will be making the period coffins, the boxes. They'll be loaded into a wagon. There'll be a procession down 116 to the old cemetery, where the site graveyard restoration committee has done an absolutely incredible job with those cemeteries. I invite each and every one of you to something that doesn't get explored often enough in this town, and that's the story of our cemeteries. And this is an opportunity to take advantage of that. There'll be a burial. It'll be a period service that's offered with a reenactor performing that service. The caskets will be put into the ground, and the burial will then have ended and the weekend ended. So those are the two major events going on. Well, the first one anyway. The second one is the 125th anniversary of the Richfield Fire Department. That is now scheduled, I believe, for the weekend of June 24th. I should check my calendar to make sure that's correct. Hopefully there's no more school days or used up. That way it doesn't go in and overlap. But this promises to be, if some of you who were here in 1997, it was the 100th anniversary of the Richfield Fire Department. After the Great Fire of Ridgefield happened in 1896, the decision was made, perhaps we should have a fire department. And that's when the Richfield Fire Department was organized. The Ballard family donated the property on Catuna Street, where our current building is located. It was built and has served us well for all those years. The volunteer fire department, along with the chief and the paid department, will be conducting and organizing a parade that will be quite impressive. It'll last approximately 2 hours with visiting engines and ambulances from many towns around, concluding on with the fireworks. This will be Friday night. The parade will be Friday night starting at 6. There'll be a carnival on Saturday, Friday, Saturday, with fireworks on Saturday night. 4th of July, of course, promised to be a great time. So we have a lot of action packed here for this coming year, and a lot of opportunity for all of you to get out of your houses, enjoy the beautiful town of Ridgefield, have a great time, and attend some of these venues. They're absolutely wonderful. And I'll end by saying thank you to all the volunteers. None of this would be possible without your help.
Rudy, we do have a few questions,
Sure.
2 of which have to do with EV charging stations. One that asks about charging station for cars at the solar canopy, and another that asks about stations at the high school. Do you have any information about those?
What was that, Marilyn? Stations?
EV charging stations.
Oh, yeah.
At the high school and the solar canopies.
At the solar canopies, yes, there will be some. But we're looking around town. As you know, Kohl's installed some. Not Kohl's, but Stop and Shop, the shopping plaza there. But there's one connection. That is an area that I'm working with our COG to get grant money from. There seems to be a lot of money coming up available for charging stations, and that's what we hopefully can use to fund those charging stations. We did plan on the Governor's Street. I think we have 4 or 6 vehicles can charge there now. So everywhere we make an expansion, everywhere we're looking at parking, we're adding charging stations. Yes.
How about at the high school? Any chance?
Yeah. You know, if and when the solar panel goes, and I have no reason to expect that it won't this coming year, there'll be charging stations there as well.
Okay. You mentioned Kohl's. Someone asked, do you have any idea what will replace the entire empty Kohl's store?
Right now, my knowledge is that Home Goods will be taking approximately half of it, and there is interest in the other half. I just am not at liberty to say what it would be. But it would involve the relocation of one of our stores downtown to that area for a bigger area. So,
and you did mention drainage and improvements. The question is, what is the town going to do to improve drainage, especially in town, to minimize damage from flooding experienced in recent storms?
Yeah, I touched on that. I didn't want to go into a great deal of detail, but what we're looking at with these drainage basins is to look at adjacent town property where we can put in a diversion and delay some of that water and do more of a time release so that we reduce the flows that we've been seeing and causing some serious issues. That is a project that we need to move right to the top.
Okay. And my Q&A screen is a little wonky, so Andy, you may have to pick this up, but I'll give it a try and see what I've got.
I'm seeing a few through Q&A. One question, Rudy, is if there is a map available of the Schlumberger property showing the location of the police fire building. Is that available right now?
I don't know if we have it on our website or not, but that's a good idea. We should put that up there. The reason why it isn't is that the configuration of the building hasn't taken place yet. The architects have looked at some conceptual designs that were rejected, and we're asking to be modified to lessen the impact on the property. In other words, you know, if you put the fire department down there, the garage itself with 3 bays and a drive-through capability is massive when you attach it to a building. So we're looking, how do we rearrange the building and reduce square footage so as lessen the impact, the optics of that impact.
Okay, another from the Q&A, kind of asking to elaborate on the HVAC situation in our public buildings and possible funding that's been allocated to air quality improvements.
Yeah, we are looking at HVAC improvements, as I said, at the Venus building. As well as our the pool up at Barlow Mountain is on its last legs. That HVAC is getting done this year. We just replaced the HVAC equipment at the rec center. In terms of the schools, we haven't had a request for HVAC, although I think they're looking at a couple of projects and we may be doing some, but right now it's the projects that I mentioned. It's very expensive. I mean, we'll spend $1 million easily, $1 million, $2 million replacing a lot of this equipment. But it's something we need to look at, and possibly with the remaining $3 million, take care of some of the 501s with a small amount, but also maybe allocate a greater amount to addressing HVAC equipment in the town.
And another one, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead, Marilyn, if you've got a few.
Yep. How about any updates for the Noroc Valley River Trail or plans to expand the trail?
Yeah,
at the rec center.
we have a little pushback on the expansion in Richfield. We're looking at the Ramble, which is down Butch Redding in the area of Bobby's Court up in there. Some people are concerned about that. Hopefully we can get that through. That will be the trail of the future. And tying in our rail trail to that will be wonderful. But the NRVT is working hard. They just hired a new director, Andrea Gardner from Danbury, who is downtown Danbury in the Ives Center, and actually lived in Ridgefield and was involved with the Playhouse years ago. So Andrea is no stranger to us, and she'll be taking over the lead on the NRVT, and we're doing everything we can to promote that.
How about sidewalks coming to New Street? Do you have any idea when that's going to happen?
Right. We're working right now on Pound Street, which connects New Street to Main Street, and then starting from Gilbert and coming down the east side. So if you're heading downhill, it would be on your right side. We do have a neighbor in there who has flat out rejected any support at all. But we may move forward. We got a petition from the neighbors and move forward and get that done. Yeah, that's, if we're going to do new sidewalks, that's an area we would do first.
Okay. Here's one that the league hopes to have some educational programs and presentations in coordination with the library about redistricting, the redistricting for election purposes. Do you have any thoughts about that, Rudy? And for those of you who don't,
I mean, this is a great program. The League of Women Voters, I would ask for your help in educating people about the redistricting that has taken place, as well as some of the voter issues that are coming up in the legislators all across the country in each state. I read this morning a quick article on that and how everyone's beginning to look at the credibility of voting and the integrity of the systems. And everyone has ideas from A to Z. So we need to keep an eye on that. And I know the league can do that and give us the best advice to follow that issue.
well, we will certainly be holding programs about voting, and you have to remember that coming up in November will be a question concerning changing the Constitution to allow for early voting in Connecticut. We are one of, I think, 4 or 6 states in the country that doesn't have early voting, and yes, by changing the Constitution, the legislators will be able to come up with a plan for that. So that will be coming up, and we'll be doing an informational program about that. And we will be working with the registrars of voters, Cindy and Wayne, to talk about the whole redistricting and how that has impacted Richfield, how we will be split up. We won't all be Senate District 26. Part of us will go to Senate District 26. The other part will go to 24, and there will be a change in lines as far as the 111th and the 138th district. So we plan on providing those kind of informational meeting once the decision concerning the congressional districting is finished, and that's due February 15th. So after that, we'll be working with various, with Cindy and Wayne and the League of Women Voters of Connecticut and the library to put on those kinds of educational and informational programs.
You know, one way to
what
look
else
at
do
it,
we
Marilyn,
have?
I've
Yep.
looked at it this way, is that we'll end up with more representation in Hartford.
That's correct. We will, without a doubt. And we will make sure that people know what district they're in, so when they go to vote, they'll know if it says District 2, District 4, whatever. We'll make sure you know what your district is and who your candidate will be. Right. Candidates will be for your district. We'll make sure that happens.
I will wrap up with the musket ball for the Ridgefield reenactment, April 30th at the Lounsbury House. Please look for tickets. They're on sale now. It'll be a wonderful event. You'll be able to mingle with reenactors, campers. There'll be 3 campsites set up at Ballard, Jesse Lee, and the Lounsbury House. It'll be just a great weekend. So get your tickets to the musket ball. I want to talk, I'm just looking at some of the questions put up. We are beginning an organic food recycling program. We've had it for a while, but we're actually installing, we received a grant from the federal government through HRRA, Housatonic Resource Recovery Authority, to install our own organic recycling so that to the rear of the recycling center and the transfer station, we've allocated an area where we'll have actual solar panels that are power a blower that will blow air through a PVC piping system into this pile that will accelerate the decomposition of organic food waste to be able to put out front as a good, rich soil for your planting in the spring. So we hope to begin that project this year. And also the New Street issue relative to houses being torn down. We do have a demolition delay ordinance. You've read that. I just want to be clear so that everyone is aware of the fact that what happened in the court was that the prosecutor from the Department of Housing, who was prosecuting the developer for commencing with no permits, looked at the building official and said, if a fine is levied and will go to the state of Connecticut, do you want it to come back to Ridgefield? The building official said, absolutely. The question was, well, how about the Historical Society? The building official said, sure, that's fine. The headline read that the builder was forced to make a donation for his penalty. That's not the case. He was fined $1,000. The problem is that state statute allows a fine from $500 up to $1,000 or one year in jail or both. The prosecutor said, I'm not going to put the man in jail. This is the first time it's ever happened. We're not going to do that. So they did the $1,000 fine. What I have done subsequent to that is I have asked our state representative, Amy Berger-Giavallo, to submit a bill for this year's legislative session that would allow the fine to be anywhere between $1,000 and $10,000. The fine, the consequence for taking that action wasn't severe enough to deter that person from tearing that house down. And it's not that it was a hugely important historical site. The purpose of the ordinance is to promote dialogue, discussion. What can we save? What can you incorporate? What features can you incorporate into the new architectural design so that we can hopefully save some? Take pictures, catalog the historical features, the building itself. None of that was done. And the consequences need to be more severe. And I think we all agree with that. It was a great lesson. It showed some of the issues that need to be addressed with this language, and hopefully the state legislature will make those changes in state statute. We cannot do anything unless we have enabling legislation passed at the state. And that's what we're asking for your support. So keep your ears open for that.
Okay, I think anything else, Andy, as far as questions are concerned, or are we about ready to wrap up?
I think we're about ready. There was a quick question about the new path for the high school track team. Any update?
The new track is complete.
The new path? Okay.
Oh, the new path. Yeah, what we did is, unfortunately, when the high school track team cross country begins its run and heads up Ridgeberry Road past Ledges, there's a neighbor in there whose property comes right out to the edge of the road. And he has said, you're ruining my grass. This is ridiculous. Stay in the road. And that's been an ongoing issue for the last 4 or 5 years. What I was able to do is talk to the Land Conservancy, who owns the property right across the street. And we were able to do a land swap that has completed and passed the town meeting. Now we just need to develop the trail. So the cross-country team, when they get down the hill right alongside of Tiger Hollow and that entrance, can cross the street, run up the right side, go up through the woods, and make it a lot safer for everyone. Hopefully we can get that path opened up this spring.
Okay. I can't thank you enough, Rudy, for taking the time to participate in our Get to Know Your Town meetings. You've been great about doing them for us every year. And for those of you who are like these Get to Know Your Town meetings and are interested in anything else that the League does, feel free to go to our website at rlwv.org or contact us at info@rlwv@gmail.com. We'd love to share our mission with you and goals, and I know that the library feels the same, and you can always contact them through their ridgefieldlibrary.org website as well. They have their very own chat, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have concerning the library as well. I think that's it for us. Again, thank you so much, Rudy. Thank you to the library for co-hosting and co-sponsoring this program. We look forward to many more in the future. That's it, folks, and I hope you enjoyed this program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.